Welcome back to The Rough Draft. Today's episode is a special one. Not one, two guests. Reed Rawlings, Adrian Drew, both top writers on their own. But together, they are the editors for one of the most popular publications on Medium, Mind Cafe. Nearly 80,000 subscribers, people reading them daily. It's a publication that I look to a lot just for tips on happiness, mindfulness, meditation, and general raw human content. So today I want to learn a bit more about them as individual writers and some tips from editors of one of the top publications on Medium. Let's go meet the boys. Together, they're Mind Cafe. Individually, they're brilliant. Welcome both of them to The Rough Draft.
Thanks, Richie.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for joining me. It seems like an appropriate time to bring both of you onto the show, given that we could all probably use some more tips and tools about how to calm our mind, how to have perspective on the world. And to start there, is there anything that you guys are practicing to keep yourself grounded right now, to manage any stress and fears that are coming up?
Do you want to go, Adrian, or?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think for me, like a big thing is just focusing on what you can control. I think like there's not a lot we can do about the situation, like on a global scale. I mean, we can all do our bit, but I think, yeah, you just can't think too much about what's going to happen. So I'm just cracking on with work and focusing on things.
Mhm. I did a lot of research on like self-talk, like how do you respond to yourself in your head last year. So whenever I've been getting like anxious or stressed out, I've just been trying to like address myself and how I'm approaching these individual situations. Like, am I letting my mind spiral, or am I actually taking kind of a more of a logical approach to what I'm thinking? And that's been really helpful to just kind of keep me grounded.
And is that a practice that you'll actually out loud say, hey, Reed, here's the situation, here's how you're reacting, here's how you need to be reacting?
A little less in depth than that. Sometimes I'll just be like, if I ever am out loud, I'm like, whoa, whoa, is this realistic? But in my head, it's more like, okay, where did this thought come from? What's actually causing it? Is this realistic? Can I do something about it? How should I actually react? And just kind of walk myself through these steps. And most of the time by the end, I'm like, I think that was just an overreaction. I can just calm down and go do something else.
What what I admire most about what you're both doing individually and together is becoming new role models for generations of men. We know like this whole toxic masculinity, but the solution to that, it's like the vulnerable male, the thoughtful male, the male who's investing in themselves. And you guys both embody that, it seems like, daily life, but also it's in your writing and it's in your work. So just as a peer, I'm extremely grateful for that. But I want to get to know you both a little bit more before this. So what is your writing history? And Adrian, we'll start with you. When did you start writing and how did you arrive to where you are now with it?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I've been writing since I was really young. I mean, still I'm quite young, but I'd always write like as a kid, like creatively, nothing to do with self-improvement. And then I think around like maybe 13, 14, I discovered like I think the first book I read, which was to do with self-improvement, was I think it was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Peale, or Vincent Norman Peale, I think. And it was a book like really about Christianity more than anything, which was something that I hadn't really discovered at that point. But I think the main takeaway from that book was that like anything that you're unhappy with about yourself, like you can change that. So it kind of sent me on this big like self-improvement sort of journey. And then I just started writing about it. And I've always, I mean, straight out of school, I was freelancing as a writer for a while. Um, and then, yeah, one thing kind of led to another, and here we are. I mean, it's always been a passion of mine. So that's it, really.
Gotcha.
And Reed, did you have a similar history?
No, I actually hated writing through pretty much all of high school, and even in college. I mean, I majored in economics, so like I did as much as possible to keep me away from writing.
Mhm.
But after I graduated, I did an AmeriCorps program called City Year, where I was working with elementary school students, second through fifth grade, and the school is really focused on like self-improvement characteristics, things like self-control or zest or curiosity, like the same things that self-improvement is really focused on right now. But the way that it was approached was just kind of incorrect. Like telling a 10-year-old to have self-control is like they don't have
Mhm.
that. They're not like their brain's not functioning in that way. And so I just started doing research on primarily self-control to start off and what that actually meant to have it and what it should look like. And then I was like, oh, I might as well kind of share these thoughts that I'm having about what self-control is. And that kind of just spawned everything I'm doing now.
Mm. So both of you had this curiosity where like you were self-educating and just consuming as much as you could, and then it became, hey, I'm going to write about this, or I'm going to start sharing this, and it just snowballed there to eventually you met. Now, how did the both of you meet? Coming from an ocean and countries across, how did you guys get together? And then what did you guys create?
Yeah, and it's funny because I found the note that Reed left on, I think it was our submissions page, and it was like, what, 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
It was like, hey, are you still accepting writers for Mind Cafe? And I replied, I was like, yeah, man, submit here. And so it's funny to see that. And I think that's kind of how it started. So
Yeah.
Reed, like Mind Cafe was going, and it was just me for about maybe a year, at the most, maybe less than that. And Reed had begun to write for us, well, for me, in that time frame. And then, yeah, Reed came to me one day and was like, "Hey, um, have you ever thought about bringing on an editor?" And also mentioned that Medium were looking for partners at the time, to sort of partner with and grow together. So he was like, "Why don't we join forces and apply for that?" And yeah, I mean, that was when did you join, man? Maybe a year ago, 2 years? I don't even know.
March 2019, so a little over a year.
Yeah, a little over a year. So that's kind of how it began.
Yeah. And then I
And
found go for
please,
it.
I was going to ask. Since then, I see adding more teammates and building something. But just before we get that, Reed, I want to give you the opportunity to add on to
Uh,
your coming together story.
I was just gonna say I found Adrian through one of his articles was just trending on Medium, and that's how I ended up. I was like, oh, I really like this. Found Mind Cafe. I really like the message, and I was like, oh, I'd love to write for this publication, and that's pretty much how that like initial interaction went.
Do you remember what article that was?
Yeah, the 3 pillars of happiness. I don't know if
All
that's
right.
exactly right, but I'm pretty
I'm
sure.
I'm gonna dig back. I'm gonna dig that one back up and make sure I include it and read it myself. Um, there's two kind of follow up questions, and one we'll get to is about like what it means to really partner with Medium. Because as a writer, I hear it a lot in editors speak. Hey, we're gonna partner with Medium. But before that, so Mind Cafe started, and for a year, it's just you, Adrian, writing. Now Reed jumps on, becomes an editor. I'm pretty sure it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I saw on LinkedIn a new teammate had joined, and it might have been your third, fourth, or fifth. I'm also seeing animated videos. I'm seeing the full social media build out, and I'm not oblivious to this. It's like I see you're building something that's more than just a publication. So what are those internal conversations like, and what are some of the tips that you could share to someone to say, hey, here's how we extend a brand and we grow this brand into something that's more than just our articles, because there's a lot of different mediums you guys are accessing.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, the first question was, what does the partnership
Yeah.
involve? So the main thing is that we just have like monthly syncs with them. They teach us.
You muted yourself, Adrian.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my microphone's playing up. Excuse me. So they kind of like they guide us, you know, they help us ensure that the content that we're putting out is of high quality, and that you know, like little things like it isn't too clickbaity, that together we're working to provide their and our joint readership with quality content.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess it's kind of like a maybe like coaching in a sense, but we work closely with them to just grow the publication. The other question was, how did we scale that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You guys have done I mean, you're one of the publications. You know, there are the 7 or 8 medium-owned ones that everyone's aware of, and then there's only a handful of quote unquote non-medium-owned publications that everyone wants to write for. And you know, you guys are at the top of that list. How'd you get there? What are you doing to stay there?
Yeah, good point. Reed, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. I mean, I definitely think one of the things that initially attracted me to Mind Cafe was just consistency in Adrian's message really at that point. And I think everyone we've brought on or talked to, even our writers, like the big name writers who have come to write for us, have really appreciated the consistency in our message. It really allows us to kind of push forward on one path and kind of maintain the same authenticity that we had as a smaller publication. And I think that's really enabled us to kind of propel ourselves in the self-help space, which is, you know, primarily where our writers come from. Yeah.
With that consistency, it's something I really respect from publications that will keep their integrity through rejections. And what I mean by that is, hey, I may submit 10 pieces to you in a row and get accepted, but my 11th piece is a little bit outside of the target. And I'm thinking, oh, we have a personal relationship. They're just going to accept this and it out. But to get rejected, it's, hey, this is a personal thing. This is, we want to stay on brand and we want to continue to increase our brand equity. With your consistency inside of self-help, what are really the like priorities that you're looking for and that you're excited about publishing?
That's a good question. I think number one is original content, because we get a lot of submissions. I mean, sometimes like 300-400 a week, and of those, a lot can be very similar, a very run of the mill, you know, very things that have been done before. For example, morning routine articles are ones that we get a lot of. Coronavirus articles, New Year's resolution articles, you know, there are always those little trends. And those kind of things, like, while they can provide a lot of value, they're like, it's not refreshing for us to read, you know. It's not like, oh wow, we've never read something quite like this before. There are the exceptions to that rule, but I think anything that is original, maybe like takes a unique angle, yeah, just anything that we haven't really read before, I think is always welcomed. Would you agree, Reed?
Yeah, I would say just to add on that is like the way that people package those stories. Like we've definitely published our fair share of morning routine articles, and that's because generally folks take very different approaches to what a morning routine can or should be, and they pass along that message with their own story. And that's what really makes a piece unique, is when someone can blend, you know, their perspective with something that has kind of either like psychological or like authoritative backing to it.
Mhm.
Mm.
There is there an original piece that you're craving to read that you've yet to come across? Like, is there a topic or a prompt that some writer watching this will be like, there it is. I am hammering on my keyboard tonight and I'm sending that to them tomorrow morning.
So
Good
I just
question.
read one from someone sent me an article about you shouldn't feel forced to monetize your hobbies.
Ooh,
And so that would be the article that I would want to reread or someone have, package it in a new way, especially because, with the way the Medium writer partnership works is pretty much you're monetizing your work. So it'd be an interesting way to navigate putting it up on Medium and kind of claiming that you shouldn't have to do that.
it's the monetizing your work. It's a conversation I have often with writers, and I'll ask them point blank, "Do you write for money?" And the responses are, "Oh, it's so wide." Like I've gotten the email conversations where people are like, if you write for money, you're a complete sellout. And then there's others who are like, "Hey, I'm a professional writer. What I do is write, and I should get compensated fairly for that." Adrian, you said you came out of school and immediately became a freelance writer. Do you have
Mm.
any convictions on whether or not writers should or can write for money?
I mean, I think the thing I always say that if you're just starting out, then I think you can expect to write for free, and even yeah, like for free. I did a lot of free work in the beginning, some very low paid work as well. And a lot of people would disagree with that and say, no, if you're producing content, you should be compensated for it. And I get that, but if you've just begun, for me, I didn't have a degree, I didn't have any experience. I was like 16 trying to find work, and to ask for like a high rate for that work, I think it's unfair. I think if you're just starting out, then um, yeah, expect to try and get your foot in the door first, and you may not get paid well for that. But I think once you've put in the groundwork, you've proved that you're committed to the craft, I guess, then yeah, I think it's fair to expect money for your work. I think if you're doing it just for money, though, you kind of suck all the creativity out of your work. I've been in that position and trying to write just for money. You're not thinking about ideas. You're just thinking like, what's going to do well, and that never works, in my opinion.
Both of you have such thoughtful and like collected responses that observation is edging a question I want to ask in a second. But just before that, I want to take a quick break, and when we get back, I want to ask you guys to share some insights into life as an editor. I heard 300 or 400 submissions a week. Other tips you might have for writers, movements you're seeing in this space. So we'll take a quick break and jump right back into the questions. I mentioned it in the show, and it's true. Both of them are role models of mine. I've been able to get to know them through their writings, but now being in conversation, it only allows me to say this with even more conviction that these are two great guys. And I believe what they're doing is so selfless in really trying to make this world a better place. So I'm excited to get back and learn more from them. But I thought there would be no more appropriate time to have a conversation about meditation than on an episode with the editors and creators of Mind Cafe. Meditation is here to really make us better humans. It allows us to be more selfless, more creative, more human, more vulnerable. That's at least what I get out of my practice. And my practice wouldn't be possible without a comfortable place. And I owe that all to Half Moon Yoga and meditation. I stack 2 of their cushions right on top of each other every morning, every afternoon, at least 10 minutes. And it's something that I had to learn how to love. And now it's like breathing. It's like water. It's like eating. It's such a non-negotiable part of my day. And I couldn't have done that without Half Moon Yoga. So thank you for what you guys create. Also, massive deal of gratitude to Golden Root Turmeric Latte Mix out of Denver. A drink that now as I enter summer, I'm realizing can be poured over ice. It's a winter warm drink. It's a summer drink over ice. Curcumin inside all of it, some pepper and spice in it. It's just such a delicious treat to have during the morning and afternoon. So Golden Root, thank you for also what you've created. Half Moon Yoga, Golden Root, thanks for supporting the show and making conversations with Reed and Adrian possible. Let's get back in there. Let's go learn more about them and what makes them my role models. Welcome back to The Rough Draft, joined today by Adrian and Reed from Mind Cafe. And before the break, I had asked about life as an editor. And Adrian, I think it was early in the conversation, you said we sometimes have to move through 300 to 400 submissions a week. Now, you're both also writers on top of that, and you're both also managing a brand. First off, how do you do that? Like, how do you actually give the same attention to every piece and day after day, hour after hour, week after week?
Well, we didn't, like, before we couldn't manage it. I'm talking like 2 months ago, and it was still just me and Reed. And I think the mistake we made without realizing was that we were trying to like run the business model we'd created in the beginning for a small publication on a publication that was now seeing like 2 million views a month and 400 submissions a week, and we kind of came to the point where we were like, hang on a minute, this isn't working. Like it can't just be me and you anymore. So we brought on a submissions manager and another editor, Jordan. And together, the four of us now there's more of a system, and everyone now has like really one specific role, which means that they can just focus on that rather than me and Reed doing both submissions, editing, like writing, then the other stuff. It works better this way. I think the lesson is just you need to delegate at some point. You can't do it all, and that's just where we are now.
Do you have any tips or a list of things that writers should know about editor life or the process of submitting, or even beyond that, just some tips for individuals who maybe after this they sign up for Medium and that you would love to know within the first 10 minutes of joining rather than having to discover 2 or 3 years into it?
So I think on the process of editing, and one of the reasons why we kind of got away with, so like very initially when I first joined Mind Cafe, I think our submissions were like, 10 to 20 a week or so, like very, very low, easily manageable. But even up until like we were getting 50 to 100 a week, I was still doing it. And that's because writers, I think they believe that our role as editors is to fix every single spelling and grammar mistake. And that's like not what we should be doing. We're here to help improve your piece, like really tighten up the hook in your introduction, make sure you have a nice flow, make sure your takeaways are like well done and structured. And it would be a waste of my time and Adrian's to fix these little grammar mistakes that are happening in like the very first sentence of people's articles. So generally when I see that, I'm like, well, if they couldn't take the time to even like read once through their article, I shouldn't really take the time to read the entire article because it's pretty clear they haven't put the effort in. So that's, part of my role as an editor, but also something that if you're thinking about getting into writing and want to submit to a publication, like you really need to do the first couple of sweeps because we get so many quality submissions that if you want to be, matched with those, you're going to need to put in a lot of editing on your own as well.
And do you have a list of what your submission criteria is available on Mind Cafe?
Yeah, there's a big submissions guidelines page.
Okay. So a writer can easily do the checklist themselves, and it's like, hey, if you're missing 5, 7, and 8, it's not ready to be submitted.
Yeah.
But when I do submit, okay, so Reed, I submit something to you this morning, and I wake up tomorrow, and you haven't read it yet. So I'm going to send you an email and say, hey, have you read this yet? And then I don't hear back, so I'm going to send another email tomorrow night that says, hey, what's going on? Have you read this yet? On a scale of 1 to 10, how annoying am I?
You're super annoying at the second email. I think after the first one, I think that's something we could be a little more transparent about is, so there's like submissions to actually be able to write for Mind Cafe, and then there's the submissions we get from Mind Cafe writers. And if you're already a writer, at this point, because we're getting larger, it does take a couple of days. That's not always the most transparent. So for folks, if they were to email me and just be like, hey, what's going on? I might, try and shoot them an email back quickly and just let them know that it can take a couple days. But the second one is like, all right, let's slow down a bit here.
I love that. It's something I think every writer abuses, and they sort of think that's their designated editor. So being able to just hear you say, hey, we're dealing with 400 submissions a week and average reading time might be 5 minutes. That's 2,000 minutes of reading time. We're allowed to take a couple days to respond to your piece about morning routine, which we've already published 100 times. Being in this perch of managing a publication, are there any movements that you're seeing on the platform that are interesting or might offer some perspective about ways to interact?
Hmm.
Um, uh, I would say that it feels as though Medium itself kind of wants to move away from the very standard sorts of self-help articles and really see writers start telling their stories through those individual components or even like things they've like COVID represents a great opportunity for people to kind of be alone with themselves and address how they want to improve and how their perspective has changed either to like leadership in the world or books they may be reading, and kind of intermingling that all into a single story about how they've developed as a person. And that represents something that's much more powerful and engaging than just saying, like, you should wake up at 7 a.m. and do a workout and have tea and then eat breakfast. Like, there's nothing there that engages with readers anymore. Um, yeah.
Are do you see are you seeing an increase of submissions that are like humanizing their quarantine or humanizing their self-help to really be, rather than 3 lessons I learned on this podcast, it's, hey, these are 3 sobering lessons I learned myself over the past 5 years?
Not as much. It's definitely, I think, a shift in trend, and it's a difficult thing to do. People aren't as comfortable writing about themselves or telling their story as it is to just take a podcast or a book and kind of reformat it into your own words. That's I think that's the trend that we're gonna shift towards, but it's maybe not totally apparent that it's happening right this moment.
With comfort, both of you seem to be extremely comfortable sharing and being vulnerable, whether that's an internal truth or it's the public facing persona you put on. Readers can be grateful for it. But it brings me to like a larger question where, how are you taking care of yourself? How are you putting yourself in these positions to be this vulnerable, to be able to work every day? How are you nurturing creativity, fostering this originality? Like, what types of practices are you each keeping for your total well-being?
Mm. Good question, especially at the moment. I mean, I think the big thing for me, it's really simple stuff, like I don't meditate every single day, and yeah, like I don't do all of the things that you think anyone involved in self-help should do or does already. But simple things like I get up at the same time every day. I eat well, I walk, like, I try and be a good person, and all of that stuff makes me feel good. Um, I think for me with self-improvement, what I've learned is that it doesn't matter if you're doing what everyone else is telling you should be doing. If you're doing the things that work for you, then
Mhm.
great, keep doing them. Like some people come to me and say, "Hey, I can't meditate. It's not working for me." And I'm like, "That's fine. Like you don't have to meditate. Maybe just try and be more mindful when you eat breakfast, or try and be more mindful when you speak to people." I think people are very kind of prescriptivist when it comes to self-improvement. And I try and stay away from that approach and more just be more fluid. How do I feel today and what's going to work best for me today? Um, yeah, I guess that's my answer.
I would absolutely double tap on that. The part of the problem with those things like morning routine articles is they are kind of prescriptive, like you must do this, and I don't. I wake up almost at a different time every single day because I know that's what works for me. Like I think the only really consistent part of my day, like I don't even edit every single day. The only consistent thing I do, I think, is I have these like delicious little biscotti I found at the start of quarantine, and I have those with coffee every single morning, and then I do a workout, and that's like my only consistent thing. Just because I know how my day tends to fluctuate is I get to do a lot of different projects and work, and that kind of just keeps my mind creative and flowing as I go through them. Yeah.
Have you published or written this article? That's really like the best routine or the best self-help is actually yours, and like what works for you that helps an individual find comfort in this, competition of well-being.
I haven't.
Well,
I need to write more.
credit for it, like you said earlier. That's what we want to read right now.
Um, but with what you both have written, I want to end this by also highlighting both of you as writers. And if I wanted to go discover your work, is there a piece you've written or several pieces that you would want to lead with and say, read this first and then continue on discovering the rest of who I am and what I write about?
Yeah, I think I think there are two for me because half my work is about how to write better, and half is about how to live better, I guess, you know.
Mm.
So the one I'd recommend to people trying to write for Mind Cafe is called I can't remember what it's called, something like "This is why people aren't reading your articles." I think it's featured on my Medium.
Okay.
Um, just mistakes people make, you know, that we see a lot. They're all included in there. And then the other would be the 3 pillars of happiness, which is just about how to live better. So
I think I have a couple articles on self-compassion. I don't know a specific call out that would probably be the best one, but that was something that like really changed how I view myself and my work last year and a bit in the year before that, and definitely going forward. And then I also work full time with Google, so I do a bit of writing on technical stuff. So if anyone out there wants to learn how to ask better questions, I have this article called "How to Ask Great Technical Questions," which I really enjoyed, and I think it's a great piece just for people to learn how to ask questions in general.
Cool. I'm excited to read all of those that you mentioned. And Reed, if you ever decide to write an article about how to manage time by being an editor of a publication, also working full time with Google, I would love to steal some tips from that. What's next? What's next for you individually? What's next for the publication? You don't have to share any secrets, but what can I get excited about as a fan?
we're launching a print magazine. So that's coming out around September. So we're super excited about that. It's been a dream of mine for a long time. So it's going to be about 140 pages. Yeah, just lots of different articles, all original from our writing. Yeah, so that will come out quarterly as well. So it's like a little book in itself, but lots of pretty pictures in there and stuff. So that's the next big thing. That's taking all my time at the moment.
And will I be able to, is that in the UK, US? Is it worldwide or is it only certain
Yeah,
markets?
it'll be worldwide. Yeah.
Sweet.
Mm.
Congrats. Awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. And Reed, is there anything outside of Mind Cafe that you're really excited about?
I mean, the thing that's been really engaging for me right now is I do the animation for our YouTube videos, and that's just been a treat to get to work on. But right now, I'm writing a series. I think I have about 15 written right now on goal setting, and I have 5 more to go. I don't know how I'm going to release them. They're definitely going to be on Mind Cafe. But I'll take those and hopefully eventually turn those into a course that we'll publish on Mind Cafe down the line. So those are kind of my 2 big things right now.
Awesome. Wow. Congrats to both of you for churning out so much work, but also so much thoughtful work and having a plan and a strategy with it. For everyone who wants to keep in touch, follow you each, follow the publication, where should we be leading them?
If you just Google Mind Cafe, will come up on there and website and stuff. There's a Singaporean board game cafe that will come up as well. Don't click on that. That's a different Mind Cafe. And then personally, I'd guess socials, Medium.
Yeah.
Same for you, Reed, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to follow our YouTube channel as well. But I think Medium is still our primary place, and that's going to be the best place to interact with what we're doing.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Adrian, Reed, both of you, thanks so much for coordinating this, for coming on the show. I'm excited for everything you're working on. I'm excited to go back and read those articles mentioned and more, and can't wait for the future and to do this again at some point. So thank you again.
Thank you, man.
I don't know if there's much more for me to say. I said it all in the episode. I am such a fan of Reed and Adrian as writers, as humans, as editors, as branders. What they've done with Mind Cafe is they've created a sanctuary. That's a place I would encourage everyone to spend a lot of time reading. And in the show notes, I'll make sure to introduce you to all of their writing and their work. Thank you to Half Moon. Thank you to Golden Root. Without your support, this show wouldn't be possible. And this is a show that I believe in. I really believe in the power of conversation to educate and to relate to. So thank you so much for your contribution to the Rough Draft. I'm excited to bring you the next episode, but until then, take care of yourself. Be well. Talk to you later.